Hi, my name's Kamala Thompson. I'm head of marketing at Caliber Mind, and we're going to talk about which attribution model to use when or why you should have multiple attribution models. The best example I can think of is back when I was in marketing operations, I would have field marketers call me up just panicked because they had an MQL goal and an event they held. They knew it was influential. They knew that people were on the path to buying because they'd been talking to sales, but none of the opportunities had the primary campaign listed as that event. And that's because that event was engaging with a lot of in-flight opportunities. Doesn't mean that the event wasn't worth doing, but the metric they were being held accountable for wasn't capturing the true lift of that event. As we can see, I've got this on a first touch model. I'm looking at the current quarter and I have it filtered to webinar/virtual event. Looking at this particular model, it looks like my campaign performed pretty poorly. I have one opportunity source with 42K associated with it, 0 influenced. So it looks like my event really wasn't worth doing. Even if I changed that model to another single touch model, middle touch, or right before the opportunity was created, I'm not going to see much of a significant change in outlook. I'm still not going to think that my campaign was worth doing. So in this case, you have two opportunity source, one up a little bit, 84K associated, and again, none influenced. So let's go ahead and look at my favorite attribution model when I'm looking at overall lift, and that's the even weighted. In this case, it's still not a very impressive number of opportunities sourced. You see the one from first touch and the two from middle touch. 34K is sourced, but you can see that 135K in the sample data is actually tied to influence or activities that took place after the point the opportunity was opened. So while I only sourced a few opportunities with this event, I can look at the amount I have influenced to date so far and the number of accounts touched versus attributed. So I have 8 associated or 8 opportunities. So again, we have 3 sourced, but 5 opportunities that were in flight that participated in this event and were influenced by it and are help pushing people along. Another example of when I want to look at different models is content downloads. So which attribution model you use really depends on which question you're answering. In this case, I want to see which content is effective at the beginning of the cycle, what's being used in the middle, and what's being used throughout. So in this case, first touch, middle touch, and even weighted are all going to be models that I want to look at to be able to figure this out as a content marketer. So we're going to start with even weighted. And there are a few interesting things to see here. So you can see the vast majority of attribution dollars are allocated to sourced attribution, which isn't the same at all as single touch. In our world, sourced attribution means we're allocating dollars to all of the activities that took place before the opportunity was created. So we have 7 sourced with 132K associated with them. I can also see we've got some podcast referrals. The account scoring guide does really well. Definitive guide to attribution, chain-based, ROAS, and MQA scoring. So it's a pretty interesting split between attribution and engagement or ABM plays. We can also see the number of accounts touched versus the accounts attributed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to first touch. I want to see which pieces of content people are interacting with initially before the deal is created. So you can see my number sourced goes down, amounts sourced is 114K, and then 0 influenced, which is expected because we're only looking at first touch. And you can see that the only campaigns associated at this point is the podcast referral. You can see that quite a few people downloaded the account scoring guide, but as of yet, there aren't any actual opportunity dollars associated with them. I'm also going to look at middle touch, or right before the opportunity is created, to see what kind of content is more mid-funnel. And the definitive guide to attribution is doing really well. Again, we have the account scoring guide, but $0 associated yet. So let's go back to the even weighted and look at how that distribution changes across those content types. So we really only had one piece of content that was being pointed out in first touch and one in middle touch. When we look at even weighted, there are far more pieces of content being attributed, a little bit of influence, again going back to that account scoring guide, and you can see that people are interacting with content between first touch and last touch with these campaigns that weren't mentioned before when I looked at either one of those single guides. I hope this demo is helpful and answers a few questions as to how CaliberMind uses its own tools to make decisions.